Coach Johnson, offensive line, offense coordinator at Norwich University. Coach, thanks for being here. I hope I said Norwich right. I'm a dumb
You
country
did.
boy.
No, you did. Just like a lot of New England towns or universities and everything, it's spelled some weird way, but it's pronounced like it's a witch. So Norwich, you're good.
Yeah, because like I said, I'm from the cornfields. We don't speak well. We don't do math well, but we try. We give it our all. We try our best.
No doubt. I'm from Worcester, Mass, and if you asked anybody outside of Massachusetts how to pronounce Worcester, they would probably say Worcester or Worcester. So we're used to it.
Oh, that would have been me. That definitely would have been me. I would say Worcestershire or something.
Right.
Well, Coach, thanks for being here. It's awesome. I know that you're in a hot box right now, so I was trying to get this going as quick as I could. Um, so let's talk about you for a second. How'd you end up where you are now? What got you into coaching? You have a big presence with like offensive line stuff. So how'd you get to that point?
So it's funny. I got my degree in broadcast media, and I originally wanted to be on ESPN, like either an announcer or cameraman type of stuff. And then I went to a couple different places, played D2 for a year at Southern Connecticut, went to one D3 school local, and then I transferred. Well, the coach that recruited me to that second D3 school resigned at my first week as a mid-year transfer. I was like, all right. So I ended up staying for 2 years. Ended up leaving that school and graduated from Worcester State University in Central Mass. And I played for a guy my last 2 years named Brian Cullen. Coach Cullen coached the same school for literally 35 plus years. He founded the program as a club and then brought all the way to Division III. And so my senior year, after the season's over, he's like, "Hey, you should try to coach." He's like, "I think you'd be a really good coach." So my buddy and I both had just finished playing. We were both O linemen. And we both actually did the O line together. My first spring as a coach. I was about to walk up the stage for graduation, and yeah, my buddy and I we were both transfers in, and we both kind of just helped rebuild the program there, and I fell in love with it. I did a little bit of recruiting in this winter, and that was cool. But once we started doing spring ball, I just fell in love with coaching, and I fell in love with offensive line, and I loved it as a player, and then it was like, all right, I get to do this as a job, and I get to mentor guys every day. I was like, this is the best thing in the world. My high school coach was one of my father figures growing up. My offensive line coach in high school was one of my father figures growing up. So I always loved football. I always loved those guys, and I loved the relationship I had with them. But I never thought that I would do it. But then once I started doing it, my last semester of college, I just fell in love with it.
No, that's awesome. So you played O-line, you fell in love with coaching offensive line. I wanted to go straight into that because I tell people this story because I think it's funny. Um, I I grew up in Central Illinois. I went to Eastern Illinois. I was coaching at the high school there. I was forced to coach other positions other than offensive line because the head coach said if you want to be a head coach, OC, DC, whatever it is, you have to understand all phases of football. Well, then my now wife got a job up in the suburbs of Chicago. I know nobody up here, right? Like there's no connections. The only way I got my foot in the door was a coach said, "What have you coached?" And I said, "Everything, but mostly O-line, like if you want to take all my years." He said, "Perfect. I need a second O-line coach. This is your way into the door." And I said, "Awesome." Volunteered. The next year, our school's like, "I need a O-line coach." Cool. Hopped on. You get a stipend. I was like, "Cool." School I'm at now, the head coach said, "I need a true O-line coach." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by a true O-line coach?" He goes, "We just put people there. Like if they've never done it, we were just throwing people in there." He's like, "You've done it." He goes, "I can't find like an O-line coach, and you are like a true O-line coach." I'm like, "Why do people not want to coach it?" And so I just, why do you think people don't want to do it?
Well, similar to you, my first 2 years coaching, I coached D-line. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because it made me understand the other side of the ball.
Yeah.
So that's that first semester when I was still an undergrad, I did O-line, and then I got hired for my first job, and they're like, "Hey, you're going to coach the tight ends." And then it went from, "Hey, you're going to coach the tight ends. Hey, you're going to coach the D ends." And then it went from, "Hey, you're going to coach the entire D-line within like 3 days before camp." So I was like, all right. But no, I don't know why people wouldn't want to coach the O-line. I think it's a very hard job. Being an OC and being an O-line coach, that was tough this year. There was a lot of stuff I learned. You got to have a good staff. This year we get to hire a whole offensive staff now that we've brought in. So I'm really comfortable going into year 2 with that. But I mean, I think some guys are intimidated by it. Like I love Coach McNally, I love Paul Alexander, I love Herb Hand. I love all those guys, and I think sometimes I love Kyle Flood, and I think that what they teach is awesome and is great. And I think those guys try to make it simple for everybody. I think some guys get intimidated by that, but I mean, my biggest thing with our room is we're the team within the team, right? If we don't have success, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the positions are. It doesn't matter how good the defense is. We're not going to win a championship. We're not going to win many games if our offensive line's not good. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I take it as a point of pride to be an offensive line coach. I love it. I always love trying to perfect my craft. Like you said, kind of have a decent presence in the O-line world. I met a bunch of guys like you on Twitter and through the coaches conventions over the year, and just always trying to get better. But I mean, I'm trying to develop as many young O-line coaches, especially in the Northeast, as I can. I'm always trying to help guys out at camps, trying to help guys, get jobs, work, at youth camp, stuff like that. Just trying to get my hands on as many good young guys that want to become coaches, and training guys too. I train guys privately on the side, so it's like, all right, if I can train these guys privately, teach them, what I believe in, maybe when those guys are done playing, they want to be coaches too.
Right, because when that happened, I thought about it, and I said, well, offensive line and even defensive line are like the non-thankful jobs, which is sad. Like, I think the teams thank them, but like the outside world that looks at it, right, they don't really think about it. And it's like, and the sexy positions are like your quarterback's coach or wide receivers coach, like that's who gets seen. And I think head coaches do a good job in the college world of like highlighting the O-line coaches, which is awesome, but we can't control what is seen on TV and stuff like that. So I think that's a part of it. But also, people don't understand you have to watch 5 guys do something all at the same time. If you had a tight end, H-back, fullback in there, now you're trying to watch 6, 7 because you're part of that. Like, how does this fit? And the argument for people was always, well, wide receivers coaches watch 4 guys. I'm like, BS, because routes, if it's a pre-snap and that's covered, you're watching the other 2 guys do something. You're not watching the other side. And, you have different eyes. You have the quarterback's coach and wide receivers coach both looking. If you have just one O-line coach, it's just that guy. And what they also don't understand is if a kid can't do a certain technique in a run play, you teach them something else in this run play. Now you have 4 guys doing one thing, one guy doing something different just to make them comfortable. Now you're watching all of this, and and the game, when that play's done in 4 seconds, the OC might be saying, what happened on that play? And you're trying to process it because it just happened in 4 seconds. And it's just, like you said, I might intimidate some people, but they're like, I don't want to watch 5 guys do something all at one time. Like, right. It's too hard.
Well, no, like the running back coach we hired in the spring, he was a former all-conference center. My running backs tight ends coach from last year, I promoted him to wide receiver. He played center for me. So, and then our quarterbacks coach is a tight end. So on our offensive staff right now in Norwich, we have 3 O-linemen and a tight end. And, people make the joke, but it's the truth. Like, I'll always hire as many O-line guys as I can. I think we know the game, besides the quarterback position. I think we know the game probably better than most. We have to learn so many things, especially the center position. Like the kid, Coach Liddy, that's going to coach receivers for us this year. He never played receiver in his life. He snapped the ball from, the age of 7 till 25. And he was unreal in the spring because he's a student of the game and he loves it. So I think the more O-linemen you can get in your program, the more O-line coaches you can get in your program, your program's going to benefit from it.
Right, because our head coach played linebacker at North Central College when he went, and he coached linebackers and stuff. But then he told me, he's like, I couldn't almost coach linebackers because I get too mad because you'd think, like, as a player, like, why can't you do this? So he started to coach other things. And he used to coach O-line, and he said he loved it because he's like, oh, you get to hit people, like, right in front of you, and that's what he's about. But he was the first one to say, when I came in and I'm doing all this stuff, he was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, like, he was also learning because he's, like, just hit people, but he's learning, like, aiming points, footwork, communication, stuff like that. And then the what if game, right? Well, if this happens, what's your answer? If this happens, what's your answer? And I'm down there doing all this stuff. And the whole staff was grateful because they were like, the OC at the time was like, Steve, I don't have to worry about what you're doing down there. Like, if you come into team time and say, this is what you did, cool. Like, during a game, hey, I tweaked this blocking thing, cool, because I had done it before. They said in the past they had a guy that's never done it before. They're constantly micromanaging. So, like you said, if people start early and coach positions they've never done before, and O-line's one of them, one, you'll probably get a job because they always need them. Two, you're going to understand it's like geometry, and I hate geometry, but everything has to work together, and it starts right there, right? It starts up front and how this all works together. And I just hope that younger coaches are like, yeah, I'll try O-line. And if a head coach is smart enough, maybe they get two guys. Now you got two guys in tandem working. Because that was the best.
Yeah.
I've only done it one time with two. I was the second one, and that was the best. The best.
Yeah, no, I've been really fortunate in my career to be a bunch of places where we've had either a full-time tight ends coach, or essentially a second O-line coach, or I've been really fortunate to have an assistant O-line guy who was really good. And it takes a load off your shoulders, especially on game day. Or hey, some places, well, I'm the only guy that can fly the drone, so I got to make sure we're filming special teams with the drone. Well, I got my assistant line coach that can run one-on-one pass rush. You know what I mean? So, no,
Yeah.
I think it's a huge benefit, and that's nothing like with us. Like, yeah, the receiver coach that we have, yeah, he's going to be watching the receivers, but if he notices something out of the corner of his eye, maybe on the way they're fitting, the defense is fitting a certain play. He understands that. Well, hey, the tight end's supposed to have that guy, or hey, the left tackle's supposed to have that guy.
Right.
So no, I think if you understand what the five inside are doing, plus the tight end, it makes your life so much easier. It makes you understand everything better.
It was interesting because you said, you became the OC, but you're also coaching offensive line. And the reason why I bring that up is because our OC, who is a smart man, in February, I think it was February, beginning of March, stepped down to be an assistant golf coach. I'm like, you're the smartest man alive. That's going to be the best coaching gig, coaching golf.
Right.
So me and the head coach sat down, and he's like, Steve, I want to make you the offense coordinator. You know what you're doing. He goes, but my fear is you balancing being the offense coordinator and then trying to balance being the O-line coach, because that takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And I'm also our speed coach, which is ironic. The biggest guy on staff is the speed coach, but whatever. So he made me go to quarterbacks, and we brought in a different O-line coach. So he's like, I want you to go to quarterbacks so you can make sure all that stuff's going well, but we have to bring in an offensive line guy that understands and is doing the right things. So how were you able to balance that, like being the OC and O-line coach? Because it does take a lot of work. So what was that kind of balance like?
I mean, I'll be 100% blunt. I think my first semester here, I sucked at balancing it. It was tough. We had some staff left over that I didn't really know yet, so I had to try to feel them out, see how they can do the job. And then the fall was a little better, but this spring was night and day from last spring. Like I said, where I had the coaches that I knew this guy. I know I can trust this guy to coach the quarterbacks, and I don't have to worry about it right now. I know we put a plan together. I know that plan's going to be taken care of. I think that's the best way to manage that situation. Just make sure you have coaches that that are going to do the job and you can trust them. Because this spring for me was night and day. I could go over to my little corner for 20 minutes and just pretend I wasn't the OC for 20 minutes and just get after it. And then was able to come back over for team and got to kind of put the OC hat back on. Whereas if my first semester here, the first spring here, and this past fall here, I wouldn't say I wasn't a worse O-line coach. I definitely probably wasn't my best at some days, just because I was so worried about everything else. But if I could give any advice to anybody that's an OC O-line guy, just make sure you have a great quarterback coach and make sure you have a great receiver coach, so that pass game stuff can kind of be tightened up, and you can trust those guys to do what they're going to do, and you're all on the same page. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I have a big problem because it's like the first year, and it was tough because being on the staff, this is my 6th year, I was a part of the offense, right? So it was very challenging to decide, do we change the playbook altogether? Do I keep it exactly the same as it was? And then I had the fear of, because the OC is still a teacher, we still get along, we're still friends. Is he going to hate me if I go change things? Like, oh, you hated what I did and look what you changed. And so it was very battling. So like right now when I do quarterbacks, I have a fear of making sure everything's tight and good because it's the first year, right? So like while I'm with the quarterbacks, there's once in a while I'll turn my head and look at the receivers. Like, are they doing exactly what I need them to do? Is it going right? I'll look over at running backs. I always look at the O line because I slightly miss it because I'm like, oh, I miss hitting people. I'm with quarterbacks. We don't hit people. Like, this is, and practice seems to take forever because you're going through like, oh, throwing progression, pocket work. And I'm like, oh, line practice would go by super quick because you're just constantly doing something. So do you think that was also a part of it, was like making sure your first time doing, like making sure it was right and tight kind of affected that too a little bit?
100%. I my 100%. My focus was never completely, on the O line, but maybe when it should have been, especially during Indy and whatnot. Um, no, I mean, it all just goes back to communicating with your staff and having, here we're pretty good. We're of the four of us are very close. When I interviewed the guy we hired for the quarterback job, I mean, I just asked him, like, all right, I want you to teach me this concept. I want you to teach me this concept. I want you to put me through your, your everyday drills for this, for that. And what I really love about him is that we can, his name is Jackson Latimer, is that we can have good conversations back and forth. No one gets their feelings hurt. There's some things that I like, there's some things that he likes, there's some things that I don't like, there's some things that he doesn't like. So I think that was huge for me this spring, being more comfortable as an O-line coach, OC, where I can trust him more. We're on the same page. We communicate a lot more. And then what's great about him too, and the other coaches on the offensive staff, is that they all want to understand the run game more. Jackson sits in on our O-line meetings sometimes because he wants to understand, what I'm teaching, how we're teaching it, and then same thing with him. We'll have the quarterbacks. We'll meet with the quarterbacks together sometimes, just so I know exactly what he's speaking and what he's teaching. So that's the biggest thing to me, is just being on the same page and communicating with your coaches.
Yeah, the O-line guy we brought in was awesome because he's young, but he's so excited. So it's really funny. I think every day we'll send 4 or 5 TikToks or reels about offensive line, like sending it back and forth to each other.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, hey, you make that into a drill, because I'm trying to. My first experience as coaching, people really didn't give me like the flexibility to kind of do what I wanted, right? It was handcuffed a little bit and stuff like that. And the thing I respected with the head coach here was, as long as it fits to what we're doing. So if our 2 run plays are this and this, and you got drills that fit into that, I don't care how you do it. I really don't care. So the O-line coach I have now, on our practice plan, I have to I'll type it up on a Sunday, make sure it's all good to go. But I'll put on there, like, up to you, I just want to see this. So like if it's inside zone based, like, hey, I don't care how you do it, I just want you to do it.
Right.
And he'll still and what's awesome that I did O-line, we had meetings of like, what did you do? What did you do? So I'm telling him, then he reports back to me about things, and I try to help him and say, you don't have to do it this way, but this is what I would do. Here's a stupid drill I just came up with on the fly, and just, you could try it. And I'm trying to tell him, like, just think outside the box. It could be a drill that you've never seen before, and you just made it up. You just made it up, and you've never seen it before. And I think he likes that because it lets him start thinking. It lets him start doing this. And he played at this high school, and so I'm helping him also kind of get away from what he say. If you learn something good, but like, I don't want to fall into this is the way we've always done things. Like, that's not what this is. This is what you're doing on there is your baby, right? Now, I also told him, since I'm an O-lineman and I was an O-line coach, if I get on the O-line, I'm not stepping on your toes. It's just my inner coach coming out, right? Like, hey, make sure we do this or this. But the good thing is he's on the same page. And I think that's also good when you get somebody that's so excited and so like intertwined in it, then I could just back off. Like, I don't think I've looked at the O-line in 2 days. Like, not because I didn't want to, it's just because other things had to get fixed, right? With formations, whatever, reading. I'm like, I don't have to worry about them. And then the best news an O-line coach can get is, hey, you're down there by yourself all day. Like, only running backs may show up, but all day you're by yourself. And he always gives me like a little fist bump. They're like, yes.
No doubt. No, I try to tell with our guys, it's like, hey, I'm going to be the bad cop. You 3 guys have to be the good cop. I'm the one that's going to have to mother up somebody every now and then. You guys need to be the good cop. And I think that was how we finished spring ball. And I thought our guys took off with that. I mean, like you said, my first year coach of D line was great. The head coach was like, "Hey, here's the 2010 Iowa Hawkeyes defensive line drill tape. Learn this like it's your Bible." I was like, "Okay." So that's all. I mean, to this day, it's a lot of what I know is the D line. It's my D line
Yeah.
background. But then same thing, the guy who's coaching wide receiver tight end for us now, he was running backs, fullbacks last year, and then he would take the tight ends, and I'd be like, "Hey, go try, our angle drive blocking drill out of this, try to make it fit better for a tight end." Same thing, and he took off and grew with that. No one ever gave me like an O-line manual. I love young coaches, and I think sometimes young coaches will get mad at me because they're like, "Hey, Coach Johnson, could I have your drill manual?" And I'm like, "No. What I want you to do is I'll give you a template, but I worked 15 years to make this thing my
Yeah.
Bible, and I want to make sure, a lot of these drills, I know them and I love them because I've come up with them or I've learned them from someone else, and I will help you, yes, but I'm not just going to give you the keys to the car, because at the end of the day, you're not going to understand why you do this drill or why you do this drill." So I think that's a huge thing when we can help young coaches be better coaches. But I don't, if I just did the drills I did as a player, as an offensive lineman, I wouldn't be a very good old line coach. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
always trying to find better drills and understand why we do things, and why we don't do things. Like kick slide and versus drive catch is going to be an argument for the next 100 years, and always will be. And some guys will fight with kick slide, some guys will fight with drive catch. At the end of the day, you're teaching the same thing. You're just using different cues. I mean, offensive line play, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, man. There's 1,000 ways to coach a dry block, and is your way the best way, or is your way the more effective way for your guys? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I remember the first time I came up with a stupid drill, our skip pulls looked terrible for like power, just never looked right. So I said, screw it. So I put cones out there. I said, here's where your feet go. Here's where the skip pull happens. If you touch this cone, you are going to go run on the track and become a wide receiver, because we're whatever. And then I said, I put like a bag out. I was like, here's the A gap, here's the B gap. I'm going to yell what gap you go into. And it was so stupid. And I just did it. And all of a sudden, the skip pull started looking better. And they're like, oh, this is what it feels like. And we just did it over and over and over. Or it was like you said, kick slide. I'll put a bag there. I'm like, if this bag moves a certain way, that means you opened up, and that means you're going to get beat. That bag comes sliding this way, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't have it. They're like, what's the name for this drill? I was like, nope, I don't have a name for it. I'm just like, let's just do it. There was no name. I'm like, I'm just doing it. Or it was, hey, we're going to go to the sled, but only two of you are going to go. And then, or something, just stupid stuff that I just come up with.
Yep.
And the kids were always like, well, what's the drill name? Or one of the coaches, what's the drill name so they can move faster? I was like, I don't care. Like, call it the cone drill. I really don't care. We're just going to do something stupid. So I try to tell our O-line coach that now is I gave him those examples, and I'm like, just come up with stuff. We have cones, we have bags, we have this, we have this. I said, and the less materials you need, the better. I said, I just needed bags and cones. I didn't need anything else. Just come up with stuff. And if you need material, we'll try to find it. Don't worry about it. But I said, even use towels. I said, or poles. I said, pass protection. I used to just bring, brooms, put them on there and be like, learn how to move. I said, I saw that somewhere, but then you add something to it. Like, now drop it and go. Like, can you get your hands up quick? Stuff like that. And I said, I probably saw it, probably stole it. I probably made it up. If a coach came and saw me, they put me in a mental asylum because whatever. And I also told them, learn the language. I said, you got to get your O-line language back. I said, and I still do it to this day with the receivers and quarterbacks. I'll say something really fast or just say rambling things, and they're like looking at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and the O-line, some O-lineman's like, Coach Steve, I hear you down there. Like,
Right.
well, you know what you're doing.
No, I think when you name or you let the guys name their drills, or like I was at a school for 2 years in Maine. I had a great time. I had a great room. COVID was a terrible thing, but for that place, it was the best thing that ever happened because there was no rules with NCAA Division III, so it was literally like O-line boot camp for 6 months, and we completely rebuilt an O-line, And we named all our drills, and I use all those names now to this day. But when the guys know, hey, when it's time for our pass pro progression, hey, I'm yelling out "Ulp, Ulp, Ulp." Why is it called Ulp? Because all it is a bunch of the Charles Bentley drills that that we kind of changed to put our little wrinkle on. So instead of saying O-line progression or whatever, we're just yelling out "Ulp, Ulp, Ulp." The guys know to get the pass pro circuit set up, and say like some guys were like, "Oh yeah, it would be more efficient." For me, I think if the guys believe in what you're teaching and they love it, they're going to buy in more. They're going to put more effort in, and they're going to buy in and show the younger guys how to do the drill properly, that type of stuff. So it's all about just having, an identity in your room and having pride in our room. It's offensive line. You don't have to be the most talented guy, but if you can work your ass off and you can, give more effort and become a technician, sometimes the more talented guy is going to get beat out because there's guys out there they're going to will themselves into being on the field.
I know the answer to this. What's the best film meeting room? Wide receivers, O-line, quarterbacks? Which is the most fun? I know.
I mean, 100% it's O-line. Yeah. There's one of my guys has a notebook somewhere from like 2021 to 2023. If that ever got released, I wouldn't be able to work in college coaching anymore. I actually like with the quarterbacks too, especially here. To go to Norwich, you got to be a little bit different of a cat, and a lot of our guys are tough and they're a little bit crazy. So the quarterbacks here are great, and then our running backs room here is pretty fun too. They're a bunch of nut bars. They're great guys. So I always will have O-line meeting room is bias. I do love it when the tight ends come in because they think they're Gronk or Kelsey but no, I like when the tight ends join our meeting room. Sometimes it's fun, especially when we're talking run game stuff.
I loved it when they came in or the running backs came in because I was the run game guy, so I had to coach up the running backs while doing the O-line and stuff. And I remember our running back we had, he false stepped like for 4 clips in a row. So like the 5th clip, he did it again. And I just kept rewinding it, playing it, rewinding it. And he's looking around and I'm like, can anybody tell me why I'm doing this? And one of the linemen are like, because he's false stepping. You always do this to us. You'll replay something until we say what happened. And then the running backs get all emotional. They're like, well, why are you doing that? And I'm like, I just want you to see how you're screwing our O-line right now. Because when you false step and you don't get there in time, you want to blame them. And the O-linemen are like, yeah, look what you're doing to us. And it's the best. Or like when the tight end doesn't communicate with the tackle and I just replay. I'm like, you see how you're not pointing where we need to go? And the right tackle's like, see, I knew that wasn't my fault. And people were yelling at me or something. Right. And then the running backs and tight ends are always like, now I know why it's always loud over there. Because our meeting rooms are like just a wall in between the 2 rooms. And they're like, you can always hear you guys over there. And I'm like, this is why.
Well, my head coach's office is right next door, and we'll meet in here on Wednesdays. Usually, I'll squeeze the guys in the whole room, and he'll knock on the door after. He's like, "Dude, you guys are loud." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry." I was like, can't help it.
Well, because it's either somebody's getting chewed out, or it's them calling each other out and joking around and stuff like that. And I have my own stupid phrases like, I know you guys may not remember this because of COVID, but Pizza Hut buffet used to be a big deal. I want you to run at that linebacker to get him like it's Pizza Hut buffet and you're starving and this and that or something stupid. And they're like, are you really talking about Pizza Hut buffet? And I'm like, yes, I am.
I know.
Or I'll have them, I'll be like, look at the center. Hey, can you tell me what the right tackle did wrong here? And if they know it, then I'm like, okay, now you understand what's going on. Like you understand the scheme and you understand what you're doing. This year, my meeting rooms with like the wide receivers, oh my God, you point out something wrong and they got an answer for it. And I'm like, oh, I miss the old linemen where they're like, yeah, you're right. This is what I did. They're like, well, this. And you're just like, so my meeting rooms with them, I treat it almost like an O-line room of like, I'm going to get loud when I need to. I have to. Parents don't like to hear this. Call them out when they do something wrong, and it's like, hey, like the dancing with the routes, and they're just like, well, because I saw somebody doing. I'm like, no, this isn't Sundays. This isn't Saturdays. Stop doing this. Do this. Do this. Or you want them to run a certain route, and they run a completely different route. And they're like, well, because I saw this. I'm like, no. You're just trying to. It's all about you, and that's why I miss like the O-line because it's not just about one person; it's all about all of them.
Right.
You go into those wide receiver rooms, the first thing I got to get out of their heads is, especially with my passes now, is like, hey, the passes are designed to get you open, but it's also designed to get somebody else open.
Mhm.
So, like, you'll get yours. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. Whether it's a jet sweep, whether it's a quick pass or screen, whatever it is, I'll find a way. But if you can't do this and help somebody else get open from time to time, it's about you, and I got to find somebody else where it's not about you, right? Like,
But if you can teach, if the whole picture, if you get your receivers, get the O line, you get whoever it is, if your whole group can understand conceptually what's trying to go on, I think that gets rid of gets rid of the selfishness. For us, I mean, it's funny now. We tell the wide receivers, like, if you don't block, you're not going to play. Like, it's just how it is. I mean, we have a center teaching you guys how to stock block. You're going to be just fine on blocking, and we have a really good receiver room. We're really young, but we have two really good leaders in that room that are going to be they're seniors, and those guys did a really good job last year, kind of just buying in. I mean, last year was a tough year for us, but that group ended up being the guys we have coming back in this fall are great leaders. We brought in some really good young guys. I mean, we have the advantage, right? Being a college coach, we can kind of try to screen for that selfishness,
right,
and
right.
we're meeting those kids, on visits and whatnot, doing our research. So that's a big thing for me when we're trying to get to know a kid is, what's their personality like. And obviously, every receiver is going to be a little selfish. I mean, they have to.
Right.
They're going to want the ball, but it's those guys you find that, all right, hey, you're a team before me guy. You understand, hey, if I do a really good job on this push crack when we run power, well, now when we run the power RPO with the glance route, that safety's going to think I'm push cracking again, and I'm going to run right by him, and I'm going to catch a 40-yard touchdown. That's the stuff that the guys, once they understand that, I think that's when your culture and on-field execution really explodes once guys understand what everybody else's job is.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to make constant communications. I took like O line blocking names to like everybody else. So I was trying to get the receivers to understand, like, we call it a hook block, we call it a log block, or we call it a kick out. I know you say stock blocking, but
Yep.
I want them all to hear it. So that way,
Yep.
when a kid comes off, if we have to make a tweak in a game, I can look at a receiver and be like, this is where a hook block comes in. If this is how this
Yep.
goes. If we're in a certain formation, now becomes a kick out block, right? And that's the same thing I used with the O line. And I wanted that because if your tight ends are with you for a little bit doing routes and stuff and they go down there, they also have to know that, right? If they're down there blocking and communicate with the offensive lineman. So now the offensive lineman can maybe look at a tight end and say, hook block, that's where we hook block. Like, if they know it, or if a tight end does. Even running backs, like when we do pass sets, like, hey, if it's a go kick this guy out, go do this, and using those same terminology names for coaches and for players. That way, it's just constant of them hearing it, and I have a paper typed with definition of like what it is. So
Yep.
now they're not just hearing you say, "Oh, what a hook block," because at the high school level, we could say that to a kid, and we all know what it is. But what if they were never told that was a hook block? What if they called it peanut butter? Like, oh, that's a peanut butter block, or whatever.
Yep.
And you're like, it has to be constant. So now we're trying to teach them every single thing we say, there's a definition, there's a meaning, and we have to have these. So that way in a game, if we have to tweak something, we can just say it and you know what it is.
One of the things, like, going from year one to year two, and spring ball one to spring ball two, the returners, like, I'll meet with every single guy in offense at the end of the season, at the end of spring ball, and at the end of the season, a lot of the guys said, Coach, we would like to install, more as a unit first, so we can kind of understand everything, and then we'll break off by positionally and go over stuff, specific position specific. And I said 100%, that's fine. So, like, when we're installing power, we're installing duo, we're installing pin and pull, our receivers now know, all right, hey, that's the point. That's who the O line is blocking. That's plus one. That's who the tight end's blocking. All right, so now I have to go push crack here, or I have to block this guy, or hey, it's power read. These are our rules of power read. And I thought that night and day for us. Obviously, spring ball Division III, we only get to wear shoulder pads for 4 days, but we were night and day with blocking on the perimeter and blocking just in general, picking up extra hats where we weren't in the fall, just by installing our run schemes with having everybody in the room and just having them kind of understand the base of all of that. And I think that's huge. And then the same thing, pass game wise, we would still install our base concepts as a unit. So now the O line knows, oh well, hey, this is fade out, or hey, this is Y cross. So they know, all right, hey, if it's third and whatever, and we call Y cross, well, hey, if the quarterback is maybe got to step up a certain way, maybe they change their set just a little bit to help out the quarterback, whatnot. Just try to make them just a very smart conceptual football player.
Right. I got to do a better job of that in the summer because we only go 3 days a week just because we deal with travel baseball and stuff like that.
Yep.
So we're going to go like 3 days. But we also, in Illinois, we can do joint practices. So we have a joint one like every week. So essentially you only get like 2 days now because that joint practice is like your game, right? So you can't really install, but that's okay because then we can focus on skills until we get to when we start rolling in August, it becomes a lot more. So for this first part of summer has just kind of been, O-line, this is what you're doing today, go in your room, receivers, quarterback. But now that we're like in the heat of the July, my plan is to like have everybody like this is what the whole thing looks like. This is why it looks this way and understand what they're trying to do up front. If there is a key screen or an RPO, whatever it is, this is why you didn't get the ball thrown to you because the quarterback saw this box or saw this player. That's my hope now for next week. Like we're through our 7-on-7 tournaments now. So the next 2 weeks I'm hoping because 7-on-7 tournaments, I feel pressure of like making sure, well, we got to have these pass plays in because we got to compete. But then the other part of me is like, who cares? Because it doesn't affect our season, right? Like I care for the kids because they want to compete. But in the back of my mind, like I was telling you before we jumped on, right. I told our quarterback because we didn't score. We're out on the 2-yard line and we just couldn't score, And then he's frustrated. And I said, listen, I want you to answer this question. What realistically would Coach Steve call if we were on the 2-yard line? He goes, I probably would have ran the ball in or the running back would have. I said, there you go. Like, I would have done something different. It's okay. Like, right. This is just a competition. This is do something different, play against other teams. I said, when we have our joint practice next week, if we get down to the 2-yard, because you can do like inside run and move the ball. I said, if we get down to the 2 or the 1, don't you worry. We'll find a way to try to score. I said, I would never throw the ball like that unless it was like 4th and goal and we're on the 10. Like, that'd be the only time.
Right.
But that's just trying to get him also to understand, like, because I told him, I was like, you're a senior. You got to understand what I'm thinking. So you got to just keep your cool. It's all good. Like, and
there's a place for 7-on-7, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's the one thing the guys have to understand. Like, dude, we're on the 2-yard line. We're probably going to call some type of run play. We're okay. It's understand. Hey man, it's 7-on-7. But no, I think it's good for running routes and catching the ball and throwing and things. But I try to tell guys, I'm like, you ain't gonna have that much time on Saturdays, so don't hold on to that thing too long.
Well, Coach, I think I went viral yesterday, because I tweeted 7-on-7 is not real football because I got frustrated and I went viral. Like all at 1:30 p.m. yesterday, I put that out there. From 1:30 till today, my Twitter has not stopped blowing up.
Right.
People are coming after me. People are agreeing with me. It is football, but what I meant by real football was there's a pass rush, there's pass protection, there's actual shoulder pads. Like the players getting frustrated because part of my reads are getting it to the running back. Mm-hmm. Well, in 7-on-7, if there's no shoulder pads, no helmet, as soon as they get touched, they're done. So it's a 2-yard gain, and the running backs get frustrated. Oh, if we had shoulder pads on, I might have gotten 4. I'm like, you see, you're figuring it out now. Like, hopefully, once we get going. So, I went viral. I think it's still blowing up right now. It's
okay. I've pissed off the Twitter world many times in my life, so it's okay.
I just couldn't believe it. It all started with a guy. Well, then what's real football? What's real football? And I didn't even answer him. I'm like, I'm not wasting time.
Nope.
Another coach for me explained it to him, so they started going at it, and I finally said something to the coach that was like on my side. I said, hey, don't even bother responding. So then that guy is like, I hope you don't treat your kids that way when they ask a question. I'm like, oh God. Like,
yeah.
I just can't handle it. It's
Twitter. I told my fiance, I'm like, Twitter is a necessary evil. If it wasn't for recruiting, I wouldn't have it. Um, but there's so many guys that hide behind a keyboard, and
If
it's not good.
if it wasn't for podcasting and getting football information on there, I'd probably be the same way. It's
Yep. Yep.
'cause I love
No.
meeting people. I love seeing the clips. There's actually learning things on there. There's actual this.
Yep.
I wouldn't have met coaches if it wasn't for Twitter and stuff, but like that type of stuff where it's like, maybe I should have said 7 is not, I don't know. I just said not real football. That's all I said.
Yeah.
The only other time, Coach, huh?
Oh, good. I said you're always going to offend somebody. It doesn't matter. You're going to offend somebody no matter what you say.
The only other time I went viral was, I think, during COVID. The whole, spread versus under center thing was happening. The whole duo versus inside zone was happening. And I started to realize some people might run duo and call it inside zone just because that's what their mind works. I really could care less. Whatever they call it, cool. So I remember one time I drew up like inside zone on Huddle and I put it on there. And I said, in your system, my question was, in your system, is this duo or inside zone for you? Good Lord Almighty, I should never have put that, because people were like, the way you have the running back drawn up, it's inside zone. And somebody said, well, for us, this is duo. Then people start going after each other. They started going after me. And I was like, oh. So I finally retweeted and I said, all I wanted to know was what you personally did as a coach. I could care less what it was called. I should never have done that.
Oh, our linebackers coach is like my little brother. He busts my balls all the time. We work in a youth camp last year, and we do like a chalk talk session. And he asked this kid. He told this kid, he was like, "All right, when Coach Johnson starts speaking, raise your hand and just say, hey, Coach Johnson, isn't duo just inside zone?" And this kid was like 9. This kid was like 9 years old, and I was like, "Meatball, I know you were told to ask that question by somebody, so I'm not going to get mad at you right now." I was like, but no. And I ended up talking about duo for 30 minutes with a bunch of 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So it was good. But no, yeah. I mean, it's the greatest thing. I think it's the greatest thing about our game, right? There's a million different ways to do things. There's a million different ways to teach it. Not are all right. Not are all good. But most of them are good. And I think it's just something that is part of football. It's such a beautiful sport. You can develop people the way you want, and I think hopefully most of us are in it for the right reasons and doing it for the right reasons and correctly teaching the right techniques and whatnot, being safe. But yeah, no, I mean the duo inside zone thing is very funny because I have my opinions on duo and inside zone, and everybody does, and I'm not going to think someone's stupid because they have a different opinion than me. We have a different opinion.
Right, because I run inside zone, but my inside zone is all double teams. If we can't double team, I don't want to do it. And
Right.
I told somebody this summer, the only reason why I'm calling it inside zone is because I don't want to block the backside end because I have an athletic quarterback. I want him to read it. I said, if I didn't have an athletic quarterback, I wouldn't even think about calling it inside zone. We go to straight duo, like same side. But I told people, you can run inside zone from sidecar and hand it off to the same side. Now you're getting that type of look. So if it's inside zone right and the running back's on the right side and you hand it off and you have a wing coming across to block while they all double team, there you go. So it's just, I said, the only reason why I do it the way I do it is because I have an athletic quarterback. If I didn't, I may not even run inside zone. It'd be straight duo. It'd be straight this.
Well, a lot of people don't know that duo is a big part of a lot of triple option teams. Yep. So we're gonna do some stuff this year where we're just gonna use our power read tag with our duo. Mm-hmm. So same thing now. It looks like it's going to look like zone read to people, but it's really just going to be veer. We're going to start messing around with that stuff. So yeah, I mean, no one's reinventing the wheel. This shit has all been around since the 40s and 50s, and everybody just puts their own wrinkle on it. But like you said, I'm not going to install inside zone just to have zone read. Or if we're a big duo team, all right, let's just call duo and tell the tight end to leave C gap alone. It's not a big deal. So
when I put my hand down tight end, people block zone a different way. I've been around where if it's a wing, he just always goes opposite of the call. I've been a part of them where they stays with the tackle, and so people say, well, if you're supposed to read the end and you have a tight end there and you block him, what's the quarterback reading? And I'm like, the outside linebacker. And guess what? 90% of the time, he's going to hand the ball off. But he's still responsible for that linebacker for whatever you do.
Right.
And I said, if I want to hand it off same side, there comes your duo concept at the same time without the kids even realizing it. Because if you teach double teams, it's all there. If you're teaching, on tracks, the old school inside zone, no, it's not duo. That's where people are right. It's not duo because they're all responsible for an area. But if you're teaching them, your first responsibility is double teams. Now you're dabbling. And that's where I think that argument came from. And I stir the pot from time to time on purpose because I'm bored. I'm like, I want to stir the pot. Who am I going to piss off today? But people that know me, like now that kind of know me, if you see me say that, you're like, oh, he's just doing it to because I saw somebody piss somebody off. And I'm going to do it now.
Well, no, and I remember the inside zone duo tweet. Did I laugh the whole time? It was like 100%. I was like, he's just doing this to learn, and he's also trying to piss people off right now. It's pretty funny.
I'm an asshole at heart at times, so it's okay.
But like I'm the same way with inside zone. Like I was an inside zone guy for a while, but I always wanted to double team the shade. And then my buddy was like, "Well, it's not inside zone." Then I'm like, "Okay." So then I went back and looked at it. I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? It is kind of like duo." So I was like, "Well, we don't need to have both." Then, and that's just and that's just me. Some guys want to have everything. I was at a really good program 2 years ago. We had every run play under the sun, and it worked for our guys because they were older group and they knew what they were doing. But again, like there's if a guy's a full zone guy and on tracks, and that is a different play than a duo, and that's but nothing wrong with that. Just everybody's different.
Well, I learned that when I was dabbling in wide zone and outside zone.
Mm-hmm.
I remember asking somebody, "Hey, I want to learn wide zone," and they're like, "Okay," and I accidentally, just talking, just said, "Yeah." So when you block outside zone, they said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like you asked me for wide zone, like you just said outside zone, and I'm like, "Oh, my bad." I said, "But aren't they kind of the same?" And they're like, "Oh, no, hold on a second."
Right.
And I'm like, and they showed me what wide zone was, and I watched somebody else. They're blocking exactly like wide zone, but they call it outside zone.
Right.
And so that's when I started to really, and I was like, this goes back to traditionally, yes, like especially like you college coach and stuff, you have to be traditional a little bit. I said, but at the high school level, if they want to call that outside zone, let them do it, right? Like, let them do it. If they want to call it wide zone, let them do it. Because I was going to put an outside zone this year instead of wide zone because I was like, I need to play more to get to the outside. I really want to try to do that. But as I'm trying to dissect both, I'm like, wait a minute. I just saw the running back cut it up like wide zone would on outside zone because they couldn't hook the end. So now he had to cut it up. And I'm like, now I see why that argument starts to come in of like, which is different. But I'm also like we just said, at the end of the day, who cares? If they want to call it that and they're teaching it the way they need to teach it and it works for them, let them do it. I don't care.
No, at the end of the day, is what works for your guys. How do they learn? I mean, like the way we teach things here, especially run game wise, like are certain words for power. They don't know our guys. If our guys are smart and know football, they know it's power. But let's say it's Joe Schmo, freshman, who comes from a really shitty football program.
Yeah.
If he knows that this word means, hey, I'm pulling to the left, and this word means, hey, I'm down blocking to the left, our down. Yeah. That's all he's got to know. Our wide zone. If I don't call it wide zone, I call it this and this, and that's what it is.
Right.
And I think if our guys, whatever works for your guys, that's the one thing. I think our sport is beautiful. I also think it's the most overcomplicated sport. I think offensive line is the most overcomplicated position in the world. There's obviously you have to communicate, you have to make your calls, but like especially like in the past pro world, you listen to some people and they use 17,000 words. I mean the same thing if I just use 2 words. So like that type of stuff is what I've always tried to get away from is just having too many words. Like you can never communicate too much, in my opinion, but you could have too many words, too many things, too many variables.
I hope this isn't a disrespectful question. Because you're at because Division III is a lot different than others. Like your meetings, like in the summer, I know it's a lot different and everything else. Is that a reason to kind of keep things as simple? Like you can be complicated, obviously, because you're in college. You have more than like what I can do. But being at Division III, Is maybe that why you start off a little simple and then just expand off of that once it gets going?
We're so that's a great question. So I coached. I had a cup of coffee in FCS level during COVID. I coached 2 years of Division two, full scholarship. I've coached prep school. I've coached high school. Most of my career's been D3. And one of the best things my buddy said, Tom Blazer said one time, he's like, dude, if you underestimate your kids, you're gonna give them less, and it's gonna be whatever. Like if you want to install it at a high tempo, just do it. Make the guys buy in. So like for us, this is the first time at Norwich University in 6 years, yeah, 5 or 6 years, where it's the same offense in back-to-back
Okay.
seasons. Okay,
Okay.
so last year I went very slow.
Okay.
This past spring, I said nope. I said, man, nothing's changing. Yeah, we're going to tweak some stuff. We're going to change how we teach how we read our drop back and some little things like that. But I was like, you guys know this means power. This is wide zone. This is so we go pretty fast with our install. I personally, so when I take out the language and I keep that stuff simple, it's not because of the amount of meeting time or anything. It's because I don't want guys to worry. Well, hey, it's a 3-man slide over here against an odd, but then it's a 3-man slide here with a 4 down. So I use this word for this and this word for that. No, like for me, if it's a 4-man slide, we have one word for that versus any front. If
Right.
it's a 3-man slide, we have one word for that against any front. That's where I try to keep it simple. If our guys obviously struggle to pick something up and we have to slow down, we will. But that's one thing I think coaches at every level, maybe besides FBS. I saw an FBS install the other day. It was 112 pages for install one. And I was like, holy crap, this is my entire playbook. I was like, this is my entire playbook. So, but no, I think coaches, we at every level, we underestimate our guys too much. So no, I installed a pretty rapid pace. Like our whole offense is in 4 installs, and then if we let's say like we're going halfway through install 2 or install 3, and we don't grasp power, then all right, well, we're going to put everything else on pause.
Right.
But no, and that comes through to you think I'm not throwing anybody to the bus, but the elite Division 3 programs in the country, those guys are meeting with their guys every week. There's nothing against the rules saying that you just can't be mandatory. I meet with my guys once every 2 weeks right now over the summer just to check in on them, hang out with them. So I think there's if you ain't trying to win, why do it? And
Right.
for me, keeping it simple, it's not so much of the install stuff. It's more of, hey, especially at our position, right? Being a line guy, like I don't need you to say 10,000 words. I need you to make your call, make the point call, know who you're working with, and let's do the thing. And that's where, I've been places where the quarterback made the protection call and it made it even easier for the whole line, and they made the point call, and we're, here our center does a lot of that stuff and it's fine. And it's worked for us so far, but again, it all goes back to what works for your guys on that certain year, whatever makes your guys the most efficient up front.
One of the last things I wanted to ask you was, I feel like you have a big Division 3 presence because I always see you like defending Division 3, talk about how great it is, which I think it is too. I love all football, so it doesn't matter. But like you defend it a lot. Do you feel like people just don't respect it enough? Do you feel that it just kind of gets overlooked sometimes? Do you feel like kids? I know kids nowadays, it's Division 1 or bust, and I try to tell them like, if you love football like you claim you do, and you're not getting those type of offers, Division 3 is there for you, and there's a lot of good coaches. There's a lot of good Division 3 football. Like in our backyard is North Central. They keep winning championships. Like you can't tell me that that's not a good program. You got Wheaton up here. Like they're a good program. Like this. Do you feel like it gets overlooked or underlooked and things like that?
The Midwest Division 3 football is by far the best in the country, and that's just how it is. I think the Northeast is creeping up. I think the New York leagues, the Empire 8 and the Liberty League, are very good. The New Mac's very good. Springfield is in our league. They went to the Elite 8 list past year. With the transfer portal, there's dudes running around Division 3 football, and there always have been. I think there's probably more now than ever. I think you said that. I don't know if it's the kids. I think it's a lot more of the parents and some of the coaches that are trying to live through their guys. mean, like I said, I chased the dream. I went to prep school. I reclassed. I chased the dream as long as I could. I was a borderline FCS offensive lineman. I ended up playing D2 for a year. Didn't like it. Transferred down D3 and had a really good career. I tell guys that all the time. Like, dude, I'm 6'4", 315. There's kids that are 6'4", 315 that can't move, that won't play a sniff of Division III football, but they think their dad thinks they're going to go play at Bowling Green or Florida State because they're 6'5", 300 pounds. It's like, no, dude, your son can't move. That's not how it works. So I just defend it because I know how much work these guys put into it and how much other coaches put in, how much work I put into it. And like you hit it on the head. If you love football and you want to play, you're not getting any football money at Division III. You're not getting any. NILs are starting to become a thing in Division III, which is kind of cool, I guess. I don't want to deal with it, but no, like my best friends in life are from playing Division III football. I have my career thanks to Division III football, so that's why I get so pissed off and I defend a lot of guys. I worked in every corner of the country. I've coached Oregon Division III, I coached Michigan Division III, coached upstate New York Division III, and then, like I said, I'm born and raised in New England. Played Division III football, so I enjoy it. I love being a D3 coach. I think I'm not knocking any other level. I think you get to really, really know your guys. I get to have a life. I get to go to Ireland for a week. I get to go to Michigan for a week and see my in-laws and everything. And it's a good balance, and I really, really enjoy it. Do I want to be a FCS or FBS O-line coach someday? Maybe, but right now I really want to focus on just trying to make this place better. This place is an awesome place. Norwich is really unique. It's the only Division III Department of Defense school in the country. It's the only place where you can be an Army, Navy, Air Force officer when you graduate and play Division III football. And it's a really, really unique place. I love being out in Michigan where I was. I had no plans of leaving Albion. Then my best friend gets promoted to head coach here after kind of a rough couple of years here. He got promoted. We thought it was going to happen maybe a couple of years later, but not right away.
Right.
So he calls me up and he's like, "Hey man, you're moving to Vermont?" I said, "Sure, let's do it." And it's been a really good experience. I mean, I never went winless in my life in anything until last year. And then, it's the first year as a play caller by yourself and you don't win any games. You're like, all right, do I suck? I'm like, what's going on here? It was a lot of things contributed to our year last year, but we have great young men that half our team is willing to give their life for our country, which is pretty awesome, and the other half are guys here want to get a really good engineering or criminal justice degree or business degree. So that's why I love Division III. Just I think there's so much fun stuff with it. There's not a lot of places, not a lot of schools at our size at anywhere in the country, or where like Norwich. I think we have 27 states represented on our roster. I can name probably maybe 10 Division III schools that have that, and I think that's what makes our level unique. You definitely have to love football. You definitely have to love the grind. The guys for us that are in the core, they're doing military training, they're doing practice, they're doing this, they're going to weights, they're still doing everything. You're in the middle of Vermont. Some guys love it, some guys don't love it. It is what it is, but we've kind of flip the culture here in a positive way. We're doing things the right way, and I think we can hopefully put a good product on the field this upcoming year, and just kind of show what our guys are made of, and kind of what a hard-nosed Division III program can be in New England can be. Our league's very good, very tough league, and I'm proud of our guys, and I'm proud. I can't say I'm just very proud to be a Division III guy.
No, that's awesome. So when are you going to debate Dave Portnoy over that?
Oh, I might be one of like the only, bearded 35-plus-year-old males in New England that's not a giant fan of Barstool. Like, they're okay, but yeah, I wouldn't waste my time with him. No offense to him, he's a great businessman. I'll tell you that. But yeah, that tweet pissed me off. And I was like, all right, I'm going to mute myself before I get in a fighting or arguing match with Big Cat and all those guys on Twitter.
Well, believe it or not, Dave Portnoy actually helped Division III, because now I see videos left and right. They'll say something that he said, then they show a clip of like a Division III being the Division II clip, and then they'll continue his clip and they'll show something else, and they'll show something else. And I'm like, you actually helped Division III.
Oh, without a doubt, a ton of positive momentum came for Division III football after that.
I just wanted to slide that in there, like what? Because
Yep. I have a couple Barstool hats. I like some things they do, but yeah, that pissed me off.
oh yeah, because now they're in Chicago, obviously.
Yep.
I like I said, I like some of the things they do, some things, whatever. When I saw that, I was like, Dave, don't make me hate you, hate you. Like some things you say I don't like, but some things I'll defend him on because he just says he'll defend what he says. He said that, and I'm like, a part of me is like, well, you're in Chicago now. Our head football coach played at North Central.
Right.
All of his teammates now coach at North Central, and I don't mean to keep bringing them up, but it's like literally like 20 minutes away. We should all just take them to Chicago and be like, you want to tell them that? Like,
No, no, no. I mean, what I had 2 really good years at RPI, and then I took the FCS job during COVID, and then when football came back, RPI went out and played North Central in the playoffs, and I was like, God damn, these dudes are legit because we were good. We were really good. We won the Liberty League a couple years in a row, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I watched a really good defense from RPI just get freaking manhandled by North Central. I was like, good God, these dudes that make me look small. And that's what kids. I love New England. I love New England. I'm so proud to be from Massachusetts. But a lot of guys don't understand. It is okay. Like, go away. Like, I love that we have guys from Cali, Texas, Georgia come to Vermont and play the
right,
local. It's harder for me sometimes to get a kid from Massachusetts or Rhode Island to come visit versus the kid from friggin' North Jersey or Central PA because they don't understand there's a whole other world out there.
right,
And,
right.
like the MIAA, Albion, Alma, Hope.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
3 schools, those schools might be some D2 schools in the Northeast. People don't understand
right,
how the parity of college football at the Division 2, Division 3 level. If you're in a Division 3 school or the school administration gets it and they give you everything, you might have a better setup than a Division 2 school. And guys don't get that. You might have a better setup than an FCS school.
yeah,
Depending on
yeah.
your administration. So that's what I think. Obviously 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids aren't thinking like that, but that's what I try to explain to kids sometimes. Like, dude, there's a whole world out there that you guys do not know.
Oh, I had kids all the time, even now. We're like, hey, why don't you look at this school, and this is their answer. Well, that's only Division 3, and then I get frustrated. I'm like, kids don't get it. You just don't understand it. Like, what's wrong with that school? Oh, they're only Division 3, is what I'm told, and I'm like, just stop. I'm like, all right, then football's not for you. That's in the back of my mind. I'm like, then it's just not. Or their answer is, I'll just go walk on at this bigger school, and I tell them I was a walk on, and I try to explain to them how tough it is. Number one. Number two, they kind of have to know who you are already before you do that. Number three, especially this year, the rule changes and stuff like that. I'm like, that's kind of out the window. So,
No doubt. I mean, the most walk-ons are going to be kickers and a couple offensive tackles. Like, that's going to be your walk-on.
that's it. That
Like,
is it.
literally. No, like, I worked at a post-grad school for a year, and the administration didn't like us because we're placing kids at D2 schools in the Midwest. And it's like, sir, this kid's going to go to Wabash University. He's going to maybe play in the NFL. He's going to get paid to go to school versus he could go to a Division 2 school maybe closer to home that might win 2 games, is not going to give him a chance to look at the NFL or and whatnot. Like, just people don't understand, the different opportunities there are in just different parts of the country. And that was frustrating. And that's why, I mean, like, the kids I train privately, I always tell them, like, I don't even use that as a recruiting tool. That is literally me just trying to develop offensive line play in New England. We're going to start the Johnson Line Academy stuff. I'm going to start really investing more in it. We're going to do like a series where you can buy the drills and stuff online now. I'm doing a merch store and stuff. Not this give me a selfless plug, but I am trying to build that more just so we can grow offensive line play more in New England. But I tell those kids all the time, talk to everybody. Like, we have guys that play Division 3. We have guys that are playing at Boston College next year. But all those kids are the same drills. They all have the same mindset. And those kids just know, all right, well, I'm not physically as gifted as this guy, but you know what? I'm still a really good football player. I'm going to go to a NESCAC school and get an Ivy League type degree. I'm going to go to Princeton. Great, because you're brilliant and you're a really good football player. All right, well, I can't get into Princeton, or I'm not big enough for Princeton, so I'm going to go to Amherst or Trinity. And, the families that get that, and the kids that get that. Those are the ones that end up finding a place where they enjoy their career. Maybe they don't start only 2 years, maybe they only start 1 year, but they have a great degree. They had a great experience. The kids who are always the shoulda, coulda, wouldas are the hometown Harrys, are the
Yep.
guys that badmouth Division III their whole life. Their parents said, "My kid's too good for this." Those are the kids that don't go anywhere, or they walk on somewhere in a bad way, and they end up, oh, I got my ring. Yeah, man, you got that Alabama championship ring. You literally wore a Gilman bag for 5 years. That's literally what you were. So and I'm not hating on anybody. If you want to chase your dream. But I think the families that get it and the young men that get it are the ones that have really meaningful careers, that graduate with a meaningful degree. Our biggest goal here, right? Yeah, like Pierre Garcon played here as a freshman in the transfer out Union. A couple other guys have done that, played in the NFL from Norwich. All right, that's great, but that's not the program objective here. No, we want guys to graduate here as officers in the armed services, armed forces, or graduate from here with a meaningful degree and a job. That's what we want,
Right.
and it's, the guys that understand that, the families that understand that, I think are the ones that they go and have a meaningful football career and a meaningful education.
For sure. And I think social media hasn't helped because they love to post all that stuff. And that's kind of, I think, where it came from, because when I was in high school, if a Division III talked to you, we never said that's only Division III. We were like, oh, so-and-so is talking to us. Like, it was never, because I think some of us were realistic of like, U of I was right next door. Like, we're not going to U of I. We're not smart enough. We're not big enough. Oh, but Milliken's talking to us. Illinois College is talking to us. Oh, this school in Missouri's talking to, like, this coach has come up and talked to us. Oh, this is awesome. Just the fact that they're talking to us, because we had MySpace. It was
No doubt. I got my first letter ever as a sophomore, and it was from Hobart College. And I look up Hobart. I'm like, all right, this place is sick. I didn't care it was Division III, and I was like, this is awesome. I remember Curry College when I was in high school was unbelievable. They were the first New England team to win a playoff game. Because Coach Nelson was a former Patriot. All he did was just bring in beasts from like 1AA and FBS transfers every year. But I'm like, all right, this is sick. I got a letter from UMass and I got a letter from Curry. I'm like, this is cool. I don't care what it is. Like, I'm getting recruited. And nowadays kids are like, oh yeah, I got a D3 offer. I'm like, all right, well, it's still an offer to play football, brother. It's still an offer to get an education after high school. And some kids are great, and some kids are grateful. I talked to a kid from Texas the other day for 20 minutes on the phone, and you would have thought I was Nick Saban the way he was responded, and it was awesome. And then other guys, and that's the other thing too. Like, for us, go back to the recruiting piece. If a kid's not really engaged, that's okay. We don't have to give you a spot. We're not. I don't want to beg kids to be recruited.
Right.
If a kid fits the mission, of your university, of your school, great.
Right.
Go after them and see what happens. And that's how I think recruiting should be. A lot of times, programs will sell a kid. There's still a lot of used car salesmen out there. I think it's less and less now, though, just because the internet. Kids can look up a lot of facts about universities and whatnot.
Right.
But there's still a lot of used car salesmen out there. But those are the guys that end up transferring a bunch because they didn't do their homework. And
right.
That's what it comes down to in recruiting. Do your homework. Is it a mutually beneficial situation? I'm not just going to use a kid to win football games. Like, I want you to come here and get a job. I want you to come here and have fun. That's what it's got to be about.
Right. Exactly. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on here, donating a lot of time. Appreciate it.
Of course, man.
Good things will happen there. I trust it. So good luck. All that stuff. Thanks for coming.
I appreciate having me on, brother.